Okay, Karen, it's wonderful to have you as a judge at the
Thank
M&M
you.
Global Awards. Is this your first time?
It is indeed. I was very excited to have the opportunity to.
And how's your first part of it been? So we've done the morning.
Yeah.
Has it exceeded your expectations? Is there anything you think that we're missing? Do you think it covers that kind of whole global, international remit?
I think I guess I came in with the expectation that there was going to be, frankly, a wider scope of entries as far as different companies taking the opportunity. So I guess that might be one message out is for organizations that might not think they have something interesting to really take a look at it and take the opportunity to submit, because I think it might give us a richer flavor of what's really out there. So there's been some amazing entries, but there's probably even more that could have been a part of the mix.
And is there any campaigns in the categories that you've judged so far that you've thought, wow, I wish that campaign had entered because they would have walked away with that prize? Is there any campaign that you would like to have seen so far, or maybe you might see this afternoon that has blown your mind this last year?
Selfishly, just thinking about some of the social stuff, and there was actually a few really creative things that Nokia has done that I kind of wish had pulled through. And a lot of those more social things that pop up, some of which are probably so recent that hopefully we'll see them next year.
Yes.
But some of the stuff that has been submitted, there's been some unique innovations and some things I wasn't even aware of that has been fun to see.
So some learnings as well, which is great. So we want to get the judges involved so they can see how you judge, what the judges are looking for, and also learnings from you. So if you thought, actually, I need to enter a winning campaign, what kind of advice would you give to a company entering and hoping to have a chance at the top prize?
There's two things that pop for me, and the ones that I've seen so far is, as sometimes people haven't had the time, as everyone's very busy, to read through all the brief on paper, that video becomes the key way that people are selecting. So the things that have popped for me is landing a more connected story. It's here's what we were trying to achieve. In some cases, people weren't talking about here was the goal, and then how we achieved the goal, and then more importantly, how they measured. The one of the things that I brought up today is that as a people and brands, I think need to really be thinking about how we're making agencies accountable for what measuring and what success looks like, and being clear on what we think is needed to be successful, as well as media reporting that out. And so there were some wonderful creative ideas, but that opportunity to show what that impact was by the numbers was what I was lining up in some of my decisions. So probably my biggest bit of feedback is talk about creatively what you did, and then what success looked like and what the numbers were that aligned back to the ROI to the brand they were working for.
Interesting, because there was a big discussion about the numbers and actually how do you measure a campaign, which is quite good. So that's obviously a good tip to put out there. Have you, with some of the winners so far, and without giving anything away, have you agreed in majority with all the winners so far, or would there have been a few tweaks from what you've seen?
There might have been one or two tweaks, but generally I think there's been a common consensus, and the way the process is run, I think, really ensures that everyone, has a chance to have their input and be heard, and then just through that process to where I think I certainly felt comfortable with the choices that were made. There might have been one or two favorites that didn't get enough of the votes that make me sad, but all in all, it was really good.
Good. And talking of judges, how are you finding the panel? Do you think it's a nice, even mix between agencies, brands, and media owners?
I actually think it is a good mix, and I think that when people are seeing their own stuff up there, are making the right choices to maybe not talk or to add in to make sure that people understood what the meaning was behind it. But yeah, I do think it was a good mix of brand to agency across the whole set for the industry as a whole.
And as we're celebrating 25 years, M&M and M&M Global Awards, I just wanted to ask you, what do you think has had the biggest influence on media? What kind of product, service, or person it could be has had the biggest influence in the last 25 years, do you think?
Well, I guess there's two things that spring to mind, but they're even more recent, just in looking at research either. One is mobile. The fact that things are mobile now. And when we think back to how people communicate and having this device or devices that are with them all the time, and that impact from an industry perspective and how you can target people and reach them with messages and the real-time engagement. We're seeing ideas now where agencies are staying up for 24 hours a month straight to be able to land things in real time, because that's how people expect their information in these very quick consumable bites. And that's almost something we couldn't have even conceived of 5 or 6 years ago. So I think it's going to be fascinating to see what that means and what the opportunity is for brands to get more out of the mobile space, particularly from an advertising perspective. But at the same time, this thing that's become hip of flashing back to things that were old, throwback Thursdays,
Right.
and this idea of even reading things about the Internet of Things is now, how do you make it look old? So it's an old Casio, but it might have all this great technology in it. So it's this really interesting dichotomy of future and everything advancing from a technology level at the speed of sound, yet wanting to embrace what was what might be 20 or 30 years old and how people communicated in style and all that. So it's a very fascinating mix of the old and the new.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Karen.